Welcome to One on One. I'm Phil Tillman, your host, and today we're taping this show from the banks of the Wycomico River at Old Greenhill Church, named St. Bartholomew's Church. And with me is the curator since 1965 of this beautiful old building, H. Lay Phillips. Lay, thank you for letting us come in and film this absolutely gorgeous gem that we have here in Wycomico County. The history, tell us a little bit about the history of this site.
Well, the original church was a log structure built about 150, 200 yards north of this site in 1692. And it burned down, and then they established this building in 1733 is when it was completed. It started probably about 1730 is when they started building it. And it was completed in 1733. That's hence the date of 1733. And this is put on the headers on the east side, up at the top of the building. You can see it from the outside. And this was the more or less the mother church for this area. It was established then, and from this church, several chapels of ease were started. And the rector of this church lived up Wycomico Creek, which is now Brentwood, if you know, over in Somerset County.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's where the rector home was, the rectory. And there was a chapel at ease was there. And then one was established at what old Spring Hill on Route 50, St. Paul's. There was one established in, I don't know whatever happened to it, in Pittsville, believe it or not.
Wow.
And it sort of went by the wayside. Then there was one established down in Tyaskin, which is St. Mary's. It is still active. In fact, this church falls under that, the stewardship of that parish. And then there was one in Quantico, St. Philip's, and of course the one in Salisbury, St. Peter's. And there was one more, which is hard to believe, is up in Laurel, Delaware, at Broad Creek.
Wow. And it's still there.
It's still there, and it's rather active. I mean, semi-active. I'll put it much more active than this. And it's just like this building here, only it's wood.
Well, we've all heard a little bit about the history of Maryland and Lord Baltimore, the Calverts being Catholic. How do you account for the fact that the Church of England got such a foothold here on the Eastern Shore? Were the Calverts kind of into religious tolerance, or was that the case?
I guess they were, because of course in England, in the Church of England, was established by Henry VIII, and basically. Yeah. That became the Church of England.
Right.
And hence, in today's world, they want to separate religion and state. Mm-hmm. And that's where that came from.
Yeah. But now this church today is under the auspices of the Episcopal Church of the United States.
Right.
And well, in 1733, though, it was still an Anglican church.
Amen.
And the priests were, got their authority from England?
The Bishop of London.
Oh, okay. So all the English settlers here, and I guess there is a significance to the fact that this is built on a major waterway. Is that how people came to church?
That's it. Most things like this were established on waterways because that was the main means of transportation other than the horse. And that's even the rectors came by boat from
Quantico Creek. Yeah.
not Quantico Creek,
Wycomico Creek, yeah,
yeah.
Quantico Creek, excuse
This
me.
way, and other people did too. Of course, they came a horse and buggy or horses or whatever have you.
Now, we've got some thick brick walls here. You said it probably took at least two or more years to build this huge building, and for those times or any times. The brick is original to 1733.
Yes.
Now, these...
Not all of it. Where we're sitting is not original. But the walls are.
And the floor, a lot of the floor is.
Yes.
Now, how about these beautiful paneled pew boxes?
I was saying, can I get back to the floor?
Oh, yeah.
At one time, there was a wooden floor laid over top of these bricks.
Oh.
And over the years, and between the way the church deteriorated and all, the floors got rotted and got eaten up with termites. So they took them out, ripped all the wooden flooring out, what was left of it, and never put it back, and just left the brick floor.
Yeah.
Because you can see where the pews are raised a little bit.
One brick length up to keep them off the floor.
And that was anyhow, that's the way it was originally. In fact, there was another pew that came up to here, as I've said, and this was a much smaller area here.
And we're looking behind us. We're looking at the paneled pew boxes, which I guess were pretty standard at that time to have pew boxes. Why did they have the boxes? Was that for each family had one or something?
Each family paid for their own pew with tobacco tax. That's the way and that was the big means of
that was
monetary.
Money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And each family had their own pew for two reasons. One for warmth in the winter, and keep the kids under control.
That was their responsibility.
That's right.
Keep their own kids.
So that's why you have these what they call box pews.
I read somewhere in one of the histories, and we have a couple of histories of Old Greenhill Church, that the attendance in the winter time fell off dramatically, and in the summertime is when people went to church. I guess that's because there wasn't any heat in here.
You can see why.
Yeah, it would be blistery cold in here. Yeah,
in fact, I've been told that everybody brought when they came here when they did come in church, they would heat up bricks from their own homes and bring them with them and put them in the pews with them. The bricks would retain the warmth for a while.
Wow.
That's the story I've heard now. I wasn't there, so I don't know.
Let's talk about this pulpit that goes, the priest would have to walk upstairs to get up into that pulpit. I guess he was speaking down to the congregation, words from on high, or so to speak, or something like that. Is that pulpit also original to this church, 1733?
Yeah.
So there have been a lot of sermons preached from that right up there where we're looking.
Amen.
Golly day. And the two entrance doors at the back, they're original.
Yeah, there was another set of pews in the back.
Oh.
So they had to come in this side and that side. It wasn't that people didn't speak, but I mean, that's just the way they made them.
What I've read a few times that when we had a Revolutionary War, the Episcopal Church, then the Church of England, of course, was what was the Anglican Church, kind of fell on hard times because the rebels here, the people in the United States, in the colonies, kind of looked at the Anglicans as being Tories or faithful to the crown, so to speak. Was there a lull then, kind of a rough time for the Episcopal Church?
That's when the church started deteriorating during the Revolutionary War because of this conflict.
Yeah.
But I mean, not just the war, but differences of opinion.
Well, and the same accounts said that there were actually British troops bivouacked right here in this building, and in that war.
There's a pew back in the back relating to this. I've never found it, but after the war, Revolutionary War, at the first service they held in this church, of course, you realize they had the rebels and the Tories. And the priest got up there and proposed a prayer to George Washington, the first president of the United States. And this one man who owned a pew back there got up, took his family, locked his pew door, and walked out with his family and threw the key in the river.
Oh,
He was a Tory.
he was loyal to the crown.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where that pew is, but it's back there on that side somewhere.
He didn't like that upstart George Washington.
No, he
huh?
didn't.
Well, when was it, or how did we come about to have the Episcopal Church of the United States? Was that shortly after the Revolutionary War?
Yes, because I mean, a lot of people believed in the worshiping the way of the Church of England, but yet they wanted to keep ties with it, but they didn't want to be associated with it. I'll put it, it's hard to say, but
Well, as your story goes, then the main difference was, instead of praying for His Royal Highness the King, you prayed for the President of the United States, and we still in the Episcopal Church pray for the President of the United
That's
States
right.
in our daily prayers. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the early ministers of this church, and especially in relation to this absolutely gorgeous silver communion set that we're looking at up here on the altar. What's the history of that?
well, that was given to this church by the Reverend Adams, and it was supposedly given to him by Queen Anne of England. Now, there's some dispute whether it was given to him by the Queen or whether it just happened to be Queen Anne period silver, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And he in turn gave it to the church. Now, he was rector here for 65 years.
Good grief.
So that's a long time to be in one place.
Now, is he the one that built the house on the Wicomico Creek?
No.
No, before him?
That was, I'm not sure who that was.
Oh, okay. But
But
anyway,
no.
the Reverend Adams, for 65 years, and he
Record.
gave this, and it says for the use of this parish in Somerset County. So this
This was Somerset County then.
at the time. Yeah.
Because Wicomico didn't come into existence until 67, I think it was 1867.
Now, in the war between the states, or as you say, the war of northern aggression, what was the role of the Episcopal Church in Maryland? It must have had Southern sympathizers as well as Yankee sympathizers. A lot of,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. I guess
It's
the
like
whole
everything,
state.
yeah, the whole country is like that, you
Yeah.
know. It was brother against brother and brother against father. And the first bishop of the Diocese of Easton, which was formed after the Civil War, was Bishop Henry Lay.
Who you're
fought-
named for. Yeah. Henry Lay.
But he, I won't say he fought, but he was on the side of the South.
Oh.
I mean,
Well, with
so,
a name,
I mean,
with that background in your name, Henry Lay Phillips, no wonder you call it the War of Northern Aggression. Well, we can understand a little bit. Well,
he was the first bishop of the Diocese of Easton.
Okay, which I don't know was formed back in what 1830 or well, no, it had to be after the Civil War.
Right, because it was
after
all
1860.
originally it was just the Diocese of Maryland.
I see.
And then they split off after the War of Northern Aggression.
Yeah, okay. Now, this absolutely gorgeous building didn't always look like this. It fell into some disrepair.
Sure did.
What was the kind of the time period when it was no longer used and vandalized and everything else?
After basically it started to deteriorate after the Revolutionary War, and then it picked up a little bit, and see what happened. People started going to these other.
Chapels of Ease.
That's it, and they found that the river was navigable clear to Salisbury. And because this area was laid out as a port and town, port of entry and a town. And when they found it was navigable to Salisbury, that is the parish that really grew up big time.
Yeah.
And people left here because this was so far out, you might say, in the boonies. It was.
Which is maybe why it fell in disrepair, but also maybe why it's still in its original state.
Yeah.
Because I guess if it was an active church like the wooden floor, and they wanted to put heat and drop the ceiling and everything else probably, and
Right.
this is pretty much the way it was way back in 1733.
If you remember several years ago, we used to have chimneys here, and they weren't original. You can see the marks where they went up through.
For heat.
Yeah, they had these big iron stoves, but they were not original. That's
No.
why we tore them out.
So originally they just didn't have heat in here.
No,
Which,
nor air conditioning.
No.
Except when you raise the windows,
Yeah.
big time.
Yeah. Well, it takes a lot to raise those windows, as we have found out. They're huge. Well, now tell us about this service that has been going on here for years, I guess. St. Bartholomew's Day. This is St. Bartholomew's Church. What's that all about?
Well, St. Bartholomew, it was on St. Bartholomew's Day. That's when the Huguenots were persecuted and many of them massacred, actually in France. And that's why they named this church St. Bartholomew's Day, or St. Bartholomew's, after the Huguenots.
Oh, okay.
Who were massacred. I mean, they were Christians. And when the church fell into disrepair, which after the Revolutionary War, there was a period there, and then it fell, it picked up a little bit. Then when the Civil War came, it fell again into disrepair and really went, pardon the expression, I shouldn't say this, I won't say that. In a handbasket.
Yeah.
But, and then under, I've forgotten which rector it was, they started having, they said, well, they didn't have the money to put the church back in good repair like it should have been. And they gradually got money along, and they started this annual service. And it was on St. Bartholomew's Day. And back then, because I remember my father saying that they had these services on which is August 24th, regardless of what day of the week it fell.
Oh.
And people would come here and picnic because they came from so far away that they had to bring their picnics to, I mean, they were still in sort of horse and buggy days. You got to realize that.
Yeah.
And I mean, you come here, you're here for the day, more or less. And
So it was like a homecoming for Episcopalians.
That's what it was, right?
Yeah.
And then I think the attendance really started falling off. I mean, people having to go to church in the middle of the week or something. So then they changed it to make it the Sunday closest to the 24th, and that's the way it is now. In fact, way back then, they had services so long sometimes, because the rector figured he had a captive audience. And he'd get there and preach for a couple of hours.
Oh, my land.
And in the meantime, the wardens would come around and serve brandy and biscuits during break time. I mean, that's what they say. I mean, I'm not making that up. That's what they...
Well, Lay, I have been attending this service for a number of years, and as narrow as those benches are to sit on, and hard as it's hard to imagine a service that would last much more than an hour.
Amen. I
But
agree with you.
if the sermon itself lasted 2 hours, that would be torture. Yeah, that would be torture.
See, he was up there in that pulpit. He could look down and see who was going to sleep.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now
I've
is
heard
there-
that
Go
they
ahead.
had somebody walking around with a little long switch, and he would nod to them if they were going to sleep, so he'd go over there and wake them up.
Oh my, weren't allowed to doze
No,
off.
no.
Oh no, that was sacrilegious, I guess. Well, the church now is well, for instance, you just put a new roof on here a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Authentic wood shingled roof, which must have
Yeah.
been expensive.
It was expensive, and it had a kick in it. If
is
you see
there-
what a kick is?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
See, that's what originally had a kick in it.
So you,
And the
you
one,
put it
the
back.
roof before this didn't. It was just,
Yeah. So the kick is the original construction, the way it was originally.
motif. Yeah, it is.
Well, now how do you get the money to keep this building up? Is there a foundation or what?
No, we just go out and solicit, hope people will give to it. And we only have this one service.
Now, does the offering at this service go to help maintain the building?
Mm-hmm.
I see. And it's
I mean,
beautiful.
it didn't pay for that roof. We
No.
went out and did something.
Solicited funds for that. Yeah.
We had some very generous contributions from different people, different businesses, and we also had some foundations. There was one foundation that we tried to get into, but they have so many strings attached to it. We said, we don't want that.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have gotten money from them, but they were going to tell you when you had to have it open, when you had to do this, I said, I forgot which foundation that was, but we said, no.
Yeah.
Be independent.
Well-
and we managed to raise the money.
And looking around the building, I mean, it's in absolutely good shape, but not pristine. I mean, I can see there's some places in the ceiling that need to be repaired. And you said that these metal bars are what is holding the two walls from crumbling
That's
out
right.
this way.
That's just exactly.
I guess originally those wooden beams were
they
there
did.
for the same reason. What in your mind would be, as curator, what would be the next project that you would hope that can be done here, that you'd like to see done?
They're talking about restoring some of these windows like they originally were. These are a little different than they were.
Oh,
And that's in the looking and seeking process right now, more or less. To find out how they originally were, they might not have been quite that deep, and the chalice over top of them was a little different. And the shutters aren't original.
oh, they
The
are.
back doors aren't original.
Well, it'd be hard to imagine everything in here lasting from
No, but I mean
1733
original
on
type.
down.
I'll put it like
Oh,
that.
not. Oh, you mean the design is different?
Yeah.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, if some generous Episcopalian wanted to give money to help restore or to maintain this, where would they send the money? Where would they send a check?
They could send it to me, H. Lay Phillips, or they could send it to the Greenhill Restoration Committee, care of
H.
H.
Lay
Lay
Phillips.
5480 Catchpenny Road, Quantico, Maryland, 21856.
We'll put that on the screen just in case somebody
And,
wants to give any money
This
here.
money is, we get, it goes strictly for the restoration of this church and its
Yeah.
grounds. I mean, it's,
Well, it's obviously a love affair
I'm
with
very-
you. I mean, you just love this building, and I know that you, not single-handedly, but you're,
no.
you're the main one around here that keeps this going. And now on the Sunday closest to St. Bartholomew's Day, this place will be packed with people, with Episcopalians and non-Episcopalians who want to
Oh,
come
yeah, it's
and
an ecumenical service as far as
Yeah.
we're concerned.
and participate and worship in a building where people have been worshiping since 1733 that's a historical perspective that not too many places have.
That's right.
Yeah. So, Lay, thank you for being with us and telling us a little bit about this. And if anybody wants to get one of these books,
We
you
have
could,
some.
for
yeah.
loan to them or something like that.
Well, we have some enough, we have some for sale, and I forgot what kind of price we had on them.
Well, we'll figure that
booklets.
out. But it's very interesting. I've read this. St.
And,
Bartholomew's Church, Stepney Parish, Maryland, on the shores of the Wycomico River, the old Greenhill Church. It's really been a pleasure to be here at this wonderful site and with such a wonderful guy, H. Slay Phillips. Thank you for being with us here on PAC 14.
Production of One on One was made possible in part by a grant from Peninsula Bank, a community bank with 25 offices serving Wycomico, Worcester, and Somerset counties.